The story of Sherry Papini back in the headlines again with a new documentary out on Hulu called Perfect Wife. This one from the perspective of her ex husband, who really stayed by her side until there was almost really no choice but to walk away. Joining me to discuss, Robin Dreeke, retired FBI special agent, chief of the Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Program. Let me just do a quick rundown for everybody, the cliff notes of this case. Sherry Papini disappears, reported missing November 2nd of 2016 after going out for a jog. She's missing for quite a while, many days, going into weeks. And eventually she shows back up on Thanksgiving Day on the side of the road, looking as if she's been kidnapped. And it was a pretty convincing looking kidnap, considering she was branded literally with a cottering iron. Also, injuries, bruises. She had a story of being picked up by two Hispanic women and then being held in a bedroom for many days. Eventually, one of them having pity on her, according to her story, and then freeing her on the side of that highway. Her and her husband get back together, and they spend several more years together until the police and investigators eventually put the pieces together on this, and they realize this story is completely made up. There is no truth to it whatsoever. She eventually does admit to it. Gosh, if you tried to make this up for a Lifetime movie, they'd say, yeah, it's a bit much. What are your thoughts on just the overall of this? And then I want to talk about some of the charges that were levied against her. She's now free, and some of the revelations in this movie.
Yeah, I love when we get a new case pops up because you're like, I haven't seen this one before. And then so let's take a quick look. Quick glance. The first thing that struck me was two Hispanic women. That's odd. Again, my first take when I'm looking at a new case that we're examining is they generally will fit
Yeah.
some semblance of a pattern, even if it's a type of case like this that we hadn't really explored before. If you're looking at abduction in general, two Hispanic women is an outlier. That is,
Yeah.
Women abducting another woman is a real outlier. So that's the first thing. And the other
Yeah.
thing that really struck me is then we look at behavior arcs, and for the statement of the ex-husband that said in the past, even when she's a little girl, so that behavior arc is anytime things have gotten tough, she ran away.
Mm-hmm.
Boom. Yeah. So the two women thing would have really alerted me right away as law enforcement, is that abducted by two women. What? What?
And then supposedly held by those two women the whole time. I mean, it was
Yeah.
almost like, okay, sometimes you can see, sometimes there's, bait, if you will, that are going to come out there, make someone feel not threatened, and then pull them in. I know that does happen. We've seen it with, people the names are escaping me the second I'm going to say them. Ghislaine Maxwell. She was,
Right.
kind of one that was out there doing that for Jeffrey Epstein when it came to trafficking. But this is a bit different. I mean, I think the thought for a little while was that she was kidnapped and maybe gone into trafficking. But yeah, a big outlier right there. Ends up going to a former boyfriend's house, and literally he played along with her, which seemed insane to me. She literally had him shoot hockey pucks at her because he was a former hockey player to create some of these injuries. She had him hold up the hockey stick and such, and she would run into it to create injuries. He in the documentary claims, I didn't lay a hand on her. I just helped her do what she wanted to do. And he also then took a cottering iron that you'd use for like woodworking, and then cottered the word Exodus into the back, into her back. And it's there now. It's a permanent burn to really make this look real. I guess one of the questions I would have is, okay, you got somebody who is pretty much willing to do anything for this girl that he likes because they had a long ongoing relationship. Should there have been any charges pointed at him for participating in something like this, or is he just, as kind of bewildered and part of this story as anybody else, and maybe just kind of not the brightest bulb to go along with it?
Boy, I don't know the laws on this one, and
Yeah.
it's going to vary from state to state. But there not always, there's generally laws and statutes for aiding and abetting.
Hmm.
So I think whatever she gets ultimately charged with and is ultimately charged
Oh,
with,
she's been
there's
charged. She's out of jail now. She's free. She
oh,
is.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No charges have come up. She is now. She's a free woman. She went to a
Oh, that's
halfway
right. She's
house.
paying
Yep,
restitution and
doing
all that.
restitution. All of that isn't part of her kid's life anymore. But there's that aspect of it. But there's the other aspect that I do wonder about that was brought up in that documentary, "The Perfect Wife," talks about her children and what Keith Papini, her ex husband, reveals is pretty shocking, and it just touches on it at the very end. And I'm wondering if there's more to it. That talks about Sherry wanting the children to appear sick so she could take them to the doctor's office. And what she would do is get rubbing alcohol and have them inhale it, and then she'd take Kleenexes and such and put them in a Ziploc bag, tie it around their neck so the fumes continued to flow into them. And then when she took them to the doctor, they had symptoms of being ill. That's something she was never charged with in terms of child abuse or anything of that nature. I'm wondering if she needs to go back and if some of these charges, if some new charges need to be levied against her. I'm not trying to just keep kicking the person when they're down, but this is a pretty twisted human being that seems to have reps in being a twisted human being. I don't know that it's really
Yeah.
going to change now that she's out.
What's that? And we covered it on another case. Something by proxy,
A Munchausen by
syndrome.
proxy. Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that's really
As
kind
soon
of
as you
what it
said
starts
that,
to look like. Yeah,
yeah, as soon as you started saying it, say Manhausen by proxy syndrome,
yeah.
which needs a lot of therapy and counseling, and when you combine that with her, one of the reasons why people do these sensational things is because they don't feel they're getting enough attention,
Hmm.
and they do it for notoriety, they do it for money, they'll do it for all these different things. So when you combine those two things together, you have a really really unhealthy individual. Other charges on her, I don't know, but maybe court mandated therapy for one thing, and also removing the kids.
Kids
Again,
are
I
removed.
didn't see the
Yeah, yeah,
special.
yep. It's all the husband has the kids. They don't have anything to do with her right now. But yeah, I mean something like this, that sort of behavioral arc of the attention, always trying to seek attention, because it very much sounds like this has been she's needed it. She's always wanted it. She's never well, I can't say she's never gotten it. She certainly has gotten it, but it's that by any means necessary to get it. That's a scary individual that's able to do very horrible things to oneself, which she did. But then if you have that little respect for yourself, it makes you wonder what are you going to do to others, which we have seen some evidence in with the kids. Individuals like that. I mean, is there rehabilitating behavior like that?
Oh, that's a whole different question as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
The cascading different effects, it's an interesting soup that she's created with herself, because at the same time all these behaviors are exceptionally scary and potentially really threatening to others. At the same time, though, she has no problem solving ability because she runs from her problems that she's been doing her entire life, hence run away, run away, run away.
Yeah.
So she runs away from problems instead of seeking vengeance against problems, because those are the ones that you typically are more scared about. She's using people as, I'm literally thinking this out loud. She's using people as tools to further her own insecurities and needs.
Mhm.
And so she's not doing it out of retribution. So there's a less likely of violence against someone because of that. But in other words, she sees everyone around her as a tool and a screwdriver to serve herself. So I think if you remove her access to individuals that she can utilize as a tool and screwdriver in her own life and her own
Mhm.
insecurities to bolster herself, it's probably going to be okay. But yeah, there's no fixing this. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a toy that's been damaged severely. I don't think they can fix with duct tape.
Yeah, I mean, that's gonna be an interesting thing, as her life continues to play out, who she surrounds herself with. And I think anybody would have to be very cautious to be in any sort of, relationship with her, whether it's friend, romantic, going forward, just because, yeah, like, these traits don't necessarily they're not necessarily unlearned.
Well, and she's also extremely skilled at manipulation,
Yeah.
obviously, because she got her ex-husband to do all these horrendous things at her behest.
Hmm.
So that's another angle of her that I think, is part of this whole soup of her, is that she's, almost, again, it's probably apples and oranges, but Lori Daybell is also extremely manipulative individual who didn't have a lot of empathy
Hmm.
towards the people she was harming, like her children.
Yeah.
So I think there's elements of that in there as well.
Yeah.
So it's the scary thing about the manipulation side is like it's nice to say, hey, be careful of this individual because she can do X, Y, and Z, and everyone can say, oh yeah, I'll be fine, until you're surrounded in that circle of crazy, and all of a sudden you're sucked into the vortex,
Yeah.
like her ex-husband was. But again, then we got to look at the ex-husband. What was going on in that guy's life that allowed him to get sucked into that? Sounds like there's some trauma bonding going in on there as well, probably.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bizarre relationship. I mean, it's one where, yeah, I think there was a lot going on behind his back that he was completely unaware of, and just a
Oh,
lot of
yeah.
people that aren't in the crazy land, they get taken advantage of. An empathetic individual usually gets taken advantage of by someone with such a narcissistic tendency to their personality, which is clearly what this woman is or was. But it's fascinating. I do wonder. And I'm guessing back at home, just my speculation. There's probably a lot more that's being learned about what life was like with Sherry between the kids, um, and it's scary. It's just scary
Oh
that there's
yeah.
people like that are out there. But
And it's probably extremely, I don't know, physically brutal, but brutal at least psychologically, because from the data points we have, there's not a lot of an ability to empathize with individuals that she has. I mean, it's edging up on, again, not being a licensed clinician, but there's
yeah,
a lot of psychopathic tendencies in there when dealing with others,
but
which makes them very damaging.
from what Keith Papini has said, she's never apologized for any of this. Just kind of went along her way after she knew she got caught, and followed those the recommendations of the court and the sentencing and all of that. But that's a scary, weird thing. Your family, your kids, you can't even apologize. I mean, just something like even if you know you're going to stay away, but just to not have that is creepy. And she's got looks. That's what I think a lot of her thing, like just like Lori Daybell, I think she trades on that quite heavily as well, which again, it's a scary part for someone who's attracted to her because you're going to go, "Oh, that's that happened a long time ago to somebody else," and then you're in the vortex suddenly.
And not realizing that you're dealing with someone with a very broken brain.
Yeah, and accepting that and knowing when to walk away. Scary
Yes.
story. Hey, thanks for checking out the video. Be sure to follow us wherever you download podcasts, and especially Apple Podcasts, where you can get advanced episode and premium content on our premium channel right there. Also, be sure to follow us on social media so you don't miss any breaking updates on the stories that matter to you most. We're on TikTok, X, Instagram, Facebook. Just search Hidden Killers Podcast with Tony Brueski, and you'll find us right there. Again, thanks for watching.